Part 7. The 7 days passed slowly. Not peacefully. Slowly. There is a difference. Peace has space in it. It lets you breathe. Slow time only stretches the waiting until every sound in the house seems to carry meaning. A car door outside, a phone buzzing in another room, the mail slot opening, the furnace clicking on at night. Each small noise made me wonder if Andrew had answered, if Brooke had escalated, if some new version of me was being passed around the family like a dish no one wanted to claim. I kept the yellow legal pad on the kitchen table. Beside it sat the red folder, Henry's ring. Every morning, I wrote down the date. Every evening, I wrote whether Andrew had responded. For 3 days, nothing came from him. Brooke, however, did not stay silent. On the second day, Carol forwarded me a screenshot. Brooke had posted a photo of her coffee cup beside an open Bible with the caption, "Praying for patience with people who mistake generosity for control. No names, no details, just enough smoke to make everyone imagine a fire." I stared at the post for a long time. It was almost impressive how she could injure someone and then pose as the wounded one. I printed the screenshot and placed it in the red folder. On the 4th day, my cousin Elaine called from Cincinnati. I had not spoken to Elaine in nearly 6 months. "Maggie," she said carefully, "are you all right?" It was the tone that told me Brooke had been busy. "I'm fine, Elaine." "Well, Brooke said there's some tension. She said you're having trouble accepting Andrew has his own household now." I looked out the kitchen window at the empty bird feeder Henry used to refill every Sunday morning. Did she mention I gave him $18,000? Silence. That silence had become familiar. "No," Elaine said. "She did not." I almost laughed. Of course she had not. People like Brooke loved context only when it made them look merciful. I told Elaine enough. Not everything. Just enough to let the truth breathe. By the time we hung up, Elaine's voice had changed. "Maggie," she said, "don't let anyone make you feel guilty for asking questions. That's your money." I looked at my left hand. My money wasn't the only thing I gave up. She was quiet then. Some people need the full story before they understand. Others hear one sentence and know where the wound is. On the 5th day, Andrew sent an email. The subject line was, "Documentation." Just one word. I opened it at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold beside me. There were 3 attachments. A spreadsheet, a bank statement with black lines covering half the entries, and a note. "Mom, this is what I could pull together. Brooke thinks involving Linda is unnecessary, but I'm sending this so we can move on. I hope this proves I didn't lie to you." I sat back in my chair. There it was again. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "You deserve to know." Not, "I should have protected you." Just, "so we can move on." People always want to move on from the place where you are still bleeding. I forwarded everything to Linda without comment. Then I waited. Waiting for an accountant to call is not dramatic. It does not look like the turning point in a story. There is no music, no thunder, no one standing in a doorway with a final confession. There is only an old woman in a quiet kitchen, watching the minutes pass while the truth sorts itself into columns. Linda called at 3:18 p.m. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Margaret," she said, "are you sitting down?" I looked at the red folder. Yes. The spreadsheet is incomplete. The bank statement is heavily redacted, but even with what Andrew sent, I can see enough. I closed my eyes. How much went to the business? There was a pause. About $6,200. The number moved through me slowly. 6,200. Not 18,000. Not even half. And the rest? 7,000 appears to have gone toward a vehicle down payment. The SUV. I already knew. Hearing it confirmed did not make it hurt less. It only gave the hurt a number. Linda continued. 3,400 went to a travel agency. My eyes opened. A travel agency? Yes. There's also a charge that looks like a resort deposit in Florida. I can't confirm without full records, but that is what it appears to be. For a second, I heard nothing. Not the refrigerator. Not the clock. Not even Linda breathing on the other end of the line. A vacation. Brooke had sat across from me, called me a burden, and discussed money stress while planning a vacation. With Henry's ring, Linda's voice softened. Margaret? I'm here. There are also credit card payments. Smaller amounts, but still significant. I pressed my hand against the table. The wood was cool. That helped. Did Andrew lie to me? Linda did not answer immediately. That was answer enough, but she gave me the dignity of words. He did not give you a truthful picture of how the funds would be used. I appreciated that. Linda did not make it prettier than it was. What should I do? First, request unredacted records. Second, put in writing that the funds were provided based on a specific representation, emergency business need. Third, do not provide more money. And Margaret? Yes? Do not meet with both of them alone if Brooke will be present. I looked toward the front door, remembering her on my porch, the way she had leaned toward me through the gap. I understand. After we hung up, I wrote the numbers on the legal pad. Business, approx. $6,200. SUV, approx. $7,000. Travel/resort, approx. $3,400. Credit cards, remaining amount. Then I stared at them. Numbers are strange things. They do not weep. They do not accuse. They do not raise their voices. They simply stand there and refuse to become something else. At 4:02, my phone rang. Andrew. I answered this time. Hello. Mom, he said. Did you get the email? Yes. Good. So can we stop this now? I looked at the numbers. No. There was a pause. What do you mean? No. I mean, the records are incomplete. He exhaled sharply. Mom, I sent what I had. You sent what you wanted me to see. That's not fair. No, I said, looking at my bare finger. It isn't. He went quiet. Then he lowered his voice. Linda called me. I expected she would. She had no right to go through my business. You sent the documents. I sent them to you. And I asked someone qualified to help me understand them. He made a frustrated sound. Brooke said you'd do this. What exactly did Brooke say? That you'd turn this into some kind of investigation. I leaned back in my chair. Andrew, your wife called me a burden after using most of the money I gave you for things that were not your business emergency. She didn't use it. We used it. For a moment, I felt something inside me soften, not toward forgiveness, toward clarity. At least he had finally said we. Then you can both explain it. He sounded tired. The car was necessary. The kids need reliable transportation. And Florida? Silence. The kind that tells you the person heard the question and hates that you asked it. Brooke booked that before things got bad. With what money? Mom. With what money? Andrew? He did not answer. I looked across the kitchen at Henry's photograph on the wall. He was smiling in that picture, wearing the old red flannel shirt Brooke once said made him look like a hardware store Santa Claus. Henry would have answered a direct question, even when he was wrong, especially then. Andrew whispered, It got complicated. No, I said. You made it complicated because simple would have required honesty. His breath caught slightly. I knew I had hurt him. The old me would have pulled back. The new me stayed still. Before he could respond, another voice came faintly through the phone. Brooke. She's recording you, Andrew. Hang up. I was not recording. But now I wished I had been. Andrew said, Mom, I have to go. Of course you do, he hesitated. I don't want this to ruin us. That sentence hurt because I believed him. Andrew did not want ruin. He wanted escape. There is a difference. Then tell the truth before there's nothing left to save, I said. He hung up without saying goodbye. I placed the phone down and wrote the call summary on the yellow pad. Then I added one more line. Andrew admitted funds used by both of them. Brooke warned him I may be recording. I sat there until the light began fading from the kitchen. For a while, I let myself remember Andrew as a child. He used to bring me broken things. A toy truck with a wheel missing. A torn book. A birdhouse he had nailed together crookedly with Henry. Can you fix it, Mom? He always believed I could. Maybe that was part of the problem. He had grown into a man who still brought me broken things, only now they were bills and lies and the consequences of a marriage he would not confront. And I had kept trying to fix them because I remembered the boy. At 7:30 that evening, Grace called from Brooke's phone. I almost did not answer. But then I saw the name and thought of her small hands holding my apple pie like it was treasure. "Hi, sweetheart." "Grandma," she whispered. "Yes, baby. Mom's upstairs." My heart tightened. "Are you okay?" "Yes. I just wanted to ask something." "What is it?" There was a small pause. "Did you lose Grandpa's ring?" I closed my eyes. Children always find the door adults try to hide. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "I didn't lose it." "Then why don't you wear it?" I looked at my hand. How do you explain betrayal to an 8-year-old without placing stones in her pockets? "I had to let it go for a little while," I said. "Will you get it back?" My throat tightened. "I don't know." Grace was quiet. Then she said, "I miss when you wore it. You used to twist it when you told stories." I pressed my hand to my mouth. I had not known she noticed. Children see more than adults think. "I miss it too," I whispered. Before she could say more, I heard Brooke's voice in the background. "Grace? Who are you talking to?" The line went dead. I sat with the phone in my hand. For the first time that day, I cried. Not loud, not long. Just enough for the grief to remind me that beneath all the paper and numbers and careful notes, there was still a grandmother whose granddaughter had noticed an empty space no adult wanted to name. After I wiped my face, I opened the red folder and added one final note for the day. Grace asked about Henry's ring. She noticed. That note had no legal value, but it mattered more than the rest. Because Brooke could twist money. She could twist texts. She could twist concern into control. But she could not change the fact that a child had seen the truth sitting quietly on my hand. Something precious was missing. And everyone in that family knew why, whether they admitted it or not. Tart 8. The next morning, Brooke posted about me again. She did not use my name. She never did. That was part of her method. A direct accusation can be challenged. A suggestion floats. It moves from person to person, changing shape as it goes, becoming whatever each listener is most willing to believe. Her post showed a picture of the sunrise from her back porch. A coffee cup sat in the corner of the frame. Everything looked peaceful, clean, and expensive. The caption said, "Setting boundaries with older relatives is hard, especially when they confuse help with control. Praying for wisdom, patience, and protection for my family. My family. Not our family. Not Andrew's family. Hers." I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and read the comments as they appeared. "You're such a good wife and mom. Toxic people get worse with age. Stay strong. Protect your peace. Some parents think their kids owe them forever." I read each one slowly. Not because I enjoyed the pain, because I was learning how she worked. Brooke did not need to say I was unstable. She only needed to create a room where other people could say it for her. I took screenshots, one after another. My hand was steady now. That was new. A month earlier, I would have cried first, then called Andrew, then apologized for misunderstanding something Brooke had done to me. I would have tried to explain my heart to people who benefited from not understanding it. This time, I printed the screenshots and placed them in the red folder. Then I opened the yellow legal pad. Brooke public post implying older relative is controlling. Comments include toxic, worse with age, protect family. Screenshots saved. The words looked harsh, but they were accurate. At 10 o'clock, Carol called. "I saw the post," she said without greeting. "So did I. That woman is trying to build a case against you." I looked toward the red folder. "I know. She called Elaine again, too." I closed my eyes. What did she say? That everyone is concerned you're becoming fixated on money. She said Andrew is worried about your memory and judgment. Memory. Judgment. The words landed exactly where Brooke intended them to. Older women know the danger of those words. Forget your keys once, and people laugh gently. Miss an appointment, and they start offering help. Ask too many questions about money, and suddenly help becomes supervision. "Carol," I said, "I need you to write down exactly what she told you." I already did. I almost smiled. Henry's sister had always been a step ahead when anger was involved. She also mentioned something else, Carol said. My stomach tightened. "What?" She said she and Andrew have been researching senior communities. For a moment, the kitchen seemed to lose its air. I looked around my home. The chipped mug Henry bought me at a county fair, the curtains I sewed myself in 1998, the scuff mark near the pantry door from Andrew's roller skates, the doorway where Henry measured Mason's height in pencil the summer before he died. Senior communities. The phrase itself was not cruel. Many people lived happily in them. I had friends who enjoyed the activities, the safety, the company. But from Brooke's mouth, it was not care. It was removal. Did she say why? Carol's voice hardened. She said your house is too much for you and that Andrew needs to stop being responsible for every little thing. Every little thing. My furnace tune-up that I paid for myself. My property taxes that had never been late. My groceries, my doctor appointments, my car insurance, my life. Brooke was not describing reality. She was preparing an argument. After we hung up, I walked through the house room by room. Not quickly. I wanted to see it. The living room where Henry used to fall asleep during football games. The hallway where Andrew's school pictures still hung in mismatched frames. The guest room where Grace kept a small box of crayons in the nightstand drawer. My bedroom, where Henry's side of the bed remained neatly made. This house had held my marriage, my motherhood, my widowhood, and my loneliness. It was not too much for me. It was too inconvenient for Brooke. At noon, a letter arrived from Andrew. Not an email. A real letter. For a moment, I thought perhaps it was the unredacted documentation I had requested. My hand trembled a little as I opened it. It was not documentation. It was a printed brochure. Oak Meadow Senior Living. Smiling, gray-haired people walking through gardens. Bright dining rooms. A fitness class. A woman holding a paintbrush in front of an easel. Tucked inside was a handwritten note from Andrew. Mom, please don't be upset. Brooke and I only want you to be safe. Maybe we can tour this place together when things calm down. It might be good to start thinking ahead. I read the note once. Then again. My face grew cold. Not hot. Cold. Thinking ahead. A phrase that sounded responsible until you noticed who was doing the thinking and who was expected to disappear. I placed the brochure on the kitchen table beside Brooke's screenshots. The pattern was no longer hidden. First, take the money. Then, call me a burden. Then, tell relatives I was confused. Then, imply publicly that I was toxic. Then, suggest I should leave my home. All while driving a new SUV and planning a Florida vacation with money from Henry's ring. I called Linda. When I told her about the brochure, she did not speak for several seconds. Then she said, Margaret, listen to me carefully. Do not sign anything they bring you. No power of attorney changes. No bank authorizations. No property paperwork. Nothing. My hand tightened around the phone. Do you think they would try that? I think they are already laying the emotional groundwork. I looked at the brochure. The smiling people on the cover looked peaceful. I wondered how many older women had been pressured into smiling at brochures before anyone admitted they were being pushed. Linda continued, I want you to call your attorney. I don't have one. You do now. I'm giving you a name. She gave me the number for Martin Keller, an estate attorney she trusted. I wrote it down carefully. Before hanging up, Linda said, And Margaret? Yes, you need to understand something. This is no longer just about the $18,000. I know. It is about control. I looked at Henry's photograph on the wall. Yes, I said. I know that too. That afternoon, I called Martin Keller's office and scheduled an appointment for the following morning. Then I took out every important document I owned. The deed to the house. Bank statements. Henry's death certificate. My will. Insurance papers. Medical directives. The old power of attorney Henry and I had created years ago. I spread them across the dining room table. The same table where Henry and I had hosted Thanksgiving dinners, birthday cakes, arguments over homework, and late-night coffee when bills were tight. Now it held the evidence of my independence. I realized, with a kind of shame, that Andrew still had a copy of my house key. He also knew where I kept the important papers. In the filing cabinet by the guest room. The thought made my stomach tighten. I went upstairs, gathered the documents, and moved them to a locked box in my bedroom closet. Then I called a locksmith. He came at 5:30. A young man named Jason with tattooed arms and polite manners. He changed the front and back locks while I stood in the hallway pretending not to feel guilty. When he handed me the new keys, I held them for a long moment. They were silver, sharp-edged, unfamiliar. "Everything okay, ma'am?" he asked. I looked at the new lock on the front door. "Yes," I said, "it is now." After he left, I placed one new key on my keyring and the spare in the locked box. Not under the flower pot. Not with Andrew. Not where anyone else could claim access in the name of family. At 6:12, Andrew called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Brooke called. I let hers go too. A text arrived from Andrew a minute later. "Mom, did you change the locks?" I stared at the phone. So he knew already. Maybe he had tried his key. Maybe Brooke had sent him. Maybe both. I typed one sentence. "Yes." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then his reply came. "That hurts." I looked at the message for a long time. Then I looked at my bare finger. At the red folder. At the senior living brochure. At the new key in my hand. I wanted to say many things. So I chose the truest one. So did Sunday dinner. I pressed send. For several minutes, no answer came. Then Brooke texted from her own phone. "You are proving our point." I printed that too. The folder was thick now. Too thick for the small elastic band I had been using, so I found a larger one in Henry's old desk drawer. As I wrapped it around the folder, I noticed my hands. They were not shaking. That night, I ate dinner in the living room with the television on low. I did not watch it. I just wanted another human voice in the house. Near 9, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from Andrew. I listened to it once. "Mom," he said, his voice tired. "I don't know why you're doing this. Brooke is crying. The kids are confused. I feel like I'm losing you over a misunderstanding. Please call me." A misunderstanding. That word tried to enter the room and sit down like an innocent guest. I did not let it. Misunderstanding was when someone forgot the time of dinner. Misunderstanding was when a check got mailed to the wrong address. Misunderstanding was not selling your wedding ring for your son, watching his wife spend the money, being called a burden, and then receiving a brochure for a senior community. I deleted the voicemail. Then I stood up, walked to the front door, and checked the new lock. Once. Twice. Not because I was afraid. Because I liked the sound it made. A clean click. A boundary you could hear. Tart 9. I met Martin Keller the next morning at 10 o'clock. His office was in a low brick building near German Village, tucked between a tax firm and a small insurance agency. Nothing about it looked dramatic. No marble floors, no glass walls, no receptionist with a headset speaking in whispers. Just a quiet waiting room, 2 leather chairs, and a framed photograph of downtown Columbus in the snow. I appreciated that. At my age, you learn to distrust places that try too hard to look powerful. Real power usually sits behind an old wooden desk and asks for documents. Martin Keller was in his early 60s, with gray hair, square glasses, and a calm expression that reminded me of a doctor delivering facts without cruelty. Linda had already briefed him a little, but he did not pretend to know my story before I told it. That mattered to me. He invited me into his office, offered coffee, and waited while I opened the red folder. For a moment, I hesitated. The folder had become heavy in my hands. Not because of the paper. Because every page inside it represented a moment when someone I loved had made me feel foolish for trusting them. Martin noticed the hesitation. "Take your time, Mrs. Ellis," I nodded. Then I began. I told him about Andrew's call, the business emergency, the $18,000, the ring, the SUV, the dinner, Brooke calling me a burden, Carol's call, Walter Hayes, Linda's review, the social media posts, the senior living brochure, the locks. I did not cry. That surprised me. Maybe I had cried enough in private that the facts could finally stand on their own. Martin listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad much like mine. When I finished, he leaned back slightly. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, "the first thing I want you to understand is this. You are not obligated to prove you are competent simply because someone younger questions you." I felt that sentence in my chest. Not dramatically. Deeply. So much of being older seemed to involve defending the obvious. Yes, I understood my bank account. Yes, I could make decisions. Yes, I knew what I owned. Yes, I knew when someone had hurt me. Martin continued. Do you currently have Andrew listed as power of attorney? I looked down. Yes, Henry and I set it up years ago. If something happened to one of us, Andrew would help the other. And after Henry passed, you never changed it? No? Is Andrew on any bank accounts? No, but he knows where I bank. Does he have access to your house now? He did. I changed the locks yesterday. Good. The word was simple, but it steadied me. Good. Not cruel. Not dramatic. Good. He asked to see my will, my medical directive, and my power of attorney documents. I handed them over one by one. As he read, I watched the sunlight move across the floor near his desk. It was strange, sitting there with my life reduced to papers. A house deed. A will. A medical form. A bank statement. A woman can spend decades building a family, and in the end, when that family turns careless, she has to protect herself with signatures. Martin looked up. Your documents are outdated. I gave a small laugh. So am I, according to Brooke. He did not smile, but his eyes softened. Your documents are outdated, he repeated gently. You are not. For a moment, I had to look away. Kindness is harder to receive when you have spent weeks being managed, corrected, and accused. Martin explained everything clearly. We would revoke Andrew's power of attorney. We would create a new medical directive naming Carol as my emergency contact, with Linda as a backup for financial matters. We would update my will. We would draft a letter stating that the $18,000 had been transferred based on Andrew's representation of emergency business need, and that I was requesting a full accounting. Can I make him pay it back? I asked. Martin folded his hands. That depends. There was no written loan agreement at the time, correct? No. That complicates things. But it does not erase misrepresentation. It also does not erase the pressure campaign that followed. At minimum, we can document your position and protect you from further attempts at financial control. I nodded. Part of me had hoped for a cleaner answer. The kind people get in movies. A judge slams a gavel. The greedy daughter-in-law loses everything. The son falls to his knees. The mother walks away with perfect justice. Real life is quieter. Less satisfying. More paperwork. But paperwork, I was beginning to learn, could be a kind of shield. Martin looked at the senior living brochure next. His mouth tightened. Did you ask them to look into this? No. Did you express interest in moving? No. Have you had any medical diagnosis affecting memory or decision-making? No. Do you pay your own bills? Yes. Drive yourself? Yes. Manage your medication? Yes. He placed the brochure down. Then, this is not evidence of concern. It is evidence of pressure. I closed my eyes briefly. Pressure. Another word that made the shape of things visible. Before I left, Martin's assistant came in with forms for me to sign. Revocation documents. Updated contacts. Authorization for Martin to communicate with Linda. A letter requesting complete records from Andrew. My hand moved steadily across each signature line. Margaret Ellis. Margaret Ellis. Margaret Ellis. My name looked stronger the more I wrote it. Not Mrs. Henry Ellis. Not Andrew's mother. Not Brooke's burden. Margaret Ellis. When everything was finished, Martin slid a copy of the revocation notice into an envelope. This will be sent to Andrew by certified mail, he said, and to any institutions where his authority may have been listed. My stomach tightened. He'll be furious. Possibly. Brooke will say I'm proving her point. Probably. The honesty almost made me smile. Martin continued. But people who benefit from your lack of boundaries rarely applaud when you create them. I thought of the new lock on my front door. No, they did not applaud. They knocked harder. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Not Andrew's truck. Brooke's silver SUV. The one bought with part of my ring money. For a moment, I sat at the curb and stared at it. There it was, shining in the afternoon light, large and clean and expensive. It looked almost arrogant in my small driveway. Brooke was sitting on my porch bench, scrolling on her phone. She looked up when I pulled in. I stayed in the car longer than necessary. Not because I was afraid of her, because I wanted to remember this moment clearly. Brooke sitting outside a house she had suggested was too much for me. Waiting beside a locked door she could no longer enter, in a vehicle partly paid for by a ring she should have been ashamed to mention. I turned off the engine and got out. "Margaret," she said, standing. "Brooke." She looked toward my front door. "Your key doesn't work." "No." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You really changed the locks." "Yes." She gave a small, tired laugh, as if I were a child testing everyone's patience. "We need to talk. You should have called." "I did. You don't answer." "That is also an answer." Her expression flickered. I walked toward the porch, but I did not move past her to unlock the door. She noticed. "Are we going to stand outside?" "Yes." A car passed slowly behind us. Mrs. Perkins's curtains shifted across the street. Brooke lowered her voice. "You're humiliating yourself." I looked at her calmly. "No, Brooke. I think that was Sunday dinner." Her mouth tightened. She reached into her purse and removed a folded paper. "I printed something for you." She held it out. I did not take it immediately. "What is it?" "A list of resources, senior support services, financial counseling. A few communities, Andrew, and I think you should consider touring." I looked at the paper in her hand. How thoughtful. She missed the steel in my voice, or pretended to. "Margaret, this isn't punishment. You're alone. You're becoming suspicious. You're making reckless choices, like changing locks and sending legal letters." "Legal letters?" Her eyes sharpened. So Andrew had told her about the certified mail, but not yet about Martin. Good. I held my purse against my side. Inside it were copies of my new documents. "Brooke, why did you call Hayes Fine Jewelry before I sold my ring?" Her hand froze, only for a second. But I saw it. "What? You heard me." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Walter Hayes remembers the call." Her face hardened. I asked a general question. "Andrew was worried you might do something impulsive." I stared at her. There it was, the first admission. Small, defensive, but real. "You knew I might sell Henry's ring. I knew you were emotional." "No, you knew I loved my son enough to give up something precious." She looked away first. It was the smallest victory, but I felt it. Then Brooke lifted her chin. "You want to be the victim so badly." I almost laughed. "Brooke, I wanted to be a mother. There's a difference." Her eyes flashed. "You think you're better than me because you kept some old ring and lived in the same house for 40 years? "No." "Then what do you want?" The question came out sharp, but it was useful. For the first time, Brooke had stopped pretending she was concerned. I took one step closer. "I want the truth documented. I want a full accounting of my $18,000. I want you to stop calling relatives and implying I'm confused. I want you to stop suggesting I leave my home. And I want you to understand that I have changed my power of attorney." Her face went very still. That was the moment she understood. Not everything, but enough. "You, what?" I removed Andrew. "You can't just do that. I did it this morning." Her lips parted. Behind her, the silver SUV reflected the porch railing like a curved mirror. I watched the reflection shift as she stepped back. For all her talk about my safety, my memory, my judgment, this was the first thing that truly frightened her. Not my sadness, not my anger, my paperwork. Brooke folded the senior living paper slowly. "You are making a terrible mistake." "I've already made one," I said. "I'm correcting it." She stared at me for another long second. Then she turned and walked to the SUV. Before getting in, she looked back. "You're going to lose Andrew over this." I stood on my porch with my purse in one hand and my new keys in the other. For once, that threat did not make me bend. "If I lose him because I stopped being useful," I said, "then I lost him long before today." Brooke got into the SUV and slammed the door. As she backed out of my driveway, I noticed something in the passenger seat. A stack of glossy brochures. Oak Meadow Senior Living. More than one. She had not come to talk. She had come prepared. I watched her drive away. Then I unlocked my front door with my new key and stepped inside my house. My house. The words mattered now. I placed Martin's folder beside Henry's ring folder on the dining room table. 2 folders. One past, one future. And between them sat a woman Brooke had underestimated because she was old, grieving, and kind. I was still all 3. But I was no longer unprotected. Tart 10. 3 days after Brooke came to my porch, Andrew asked to meet. Not at his house. Not at mine. At first, he suggested a restaurant. I said no. Restaurants are where families go when they want witnesses without calling them witnesses. Public places make it harder to speak plainly. They turn pain into something that has to be managed between water refills and people carrying plates. Then he suggested his office. I said no to that too. His office was his territory. Brooke would be there in spirit even if she stayed home, hovering in the way he arranged papers, the way he avoided certain words, the way he looked toward the door before answering anything honest. Finally, I suggested Linda Carver's office. There was silence on the phone. "Mom," Andrew said, "is that really necessary?" "Yes," he sighed. That sigh used to make me soften. It was the sound of my little boy overwhelmed by homework, my teenager exhausted after football practice, my grown son trying to carry more than he knew how to hold. But now I recognized it as something else too. A request, not in words, but in feeling. "Please make this easier for me." I did not. "Brooke wants to come," he said. I expected that. "Do you want her there?" "No," I said. "But she was there for the spending. She can be there for the accounting." He had no answer to that. The meeting was set for Friday morning at 10. I arrived early. Linda's office was on the 2nd floor of a small building near a bank and a dentist. She had a potted plant by the door that had somehow survived 20 years of tax seasons and a framed sign behind her desk that said, "Numbers don't panic. People do." I had always liked that sign. That morning, I understood it. Linda greeted me with a firm hug. "You ready?" "No." "Good. That means you understand what this is." I sat in the chair beside her desk and placed my red folder on my lap. Henry's ring. The label looked calm. Inside, it was everything that had led me here. At 10 exactly, Andrew arrived. Alone. For one brief second, my heart lifted. Then Brooke came in behind him. She wore a cream coat, dark sunglasses pushed into her hair, and an expression so composed it looked painted on. "Margaret," she said. "Brooke." She glanced at Linda. "Linda, I didn't realize this would be so formal." Linda smiled without warmth. "You're in an accountant's office. Formality is one of our few charms." Andrew sat down. Brooke sat beside him but angled her chair slightly forward, as if preparing to speak for both of them. I noticed. So did Linda. Linda began by placing a printed copy of the spreadsheet on the desk. "Andrew, you sent this to your mother as documentation for the $18,000. Andrew nodded. "Yes, it is incomplete." Brooke spoke before he could. "It was a summary. We are busy people. We did our best." Linda looked at her over the top of her glasses. "I was speaking to Andrew." Brooke's mouth closed. A small thing. A satisfying thing. Andrew shifted in his seat. "I didn't have time to pull every receipt. You had 7 days, Linda said. "The business is hectic. Then let's start with what you did provide." She circled the first line with a red pen. $6,200 appears to have gone toward business expenses. Supplier invoice, payroll gap, insurance. That matches what you told Margaret in part. Andrew nodded quickly. "Yes, exactly." "In part," Linda repeated. His nod slowed. She moved to the next line. $7,000 went toward a down payment on the SUV in your driveway. Brooke leaned forward. "That vehicle is for the family. It is not some luxury purchase." I looked at her. "The old car was running?" She frowned. "That's not the point. It is one of them," Andrew said quietly. "The transmission was going to need work." "Going to," Linda said. Brooke's eyes flashed. "Are we really going to sit here and debate whether children should be driven in a safe vehicle?" There it was. The children. Whenever money needed to become holy, Brooke wrapped it around Mason and Grace. I thought of Grace whispering into the phone. "Did you lose Grandpa's ring?" I kept my voice even. "No one is debating the children's safety. We are discussing why I was told my son's business needed $18,000 when most of it did not go to the business." Brooke turned to Andrew. "Say something." Andrew looked at the spreadsheet. Not at me. Not at her. At the numbers. Linda continued. $3,400 went to a travel agency. Another $1,200 appears connected to a resort deposit in Florida. Andrew rubbed his face with both hands. Brooke sat very still. Florida was booked months ago, she said. With what money? I asked. No one answered. That silence had become almost familiar now. Linda placed another document on the desk. Margaret has requested full, unredacted records and receipts showing how the remaining funds were used. Brooke laughed once. No. Linda looked at her. No? We are not handing over our private financial records because Margaret has decided to punish us. Andrew said. Brooke. No, Andrew. This has gone far enough. She turned to me. You gave your son money. You did not buy the right to inspect our life. I opened the red folder. My hands were steady. I gave my son money after he told me his business was in danger. To get that money, I sold my wedding ring. Andrew flinched. Brooke did not. I placed the jewelry sale receipt on the desk, then the appraisal, then the wire transfer, then Henry's original receipt, the old one I had found in his nightstand. I did not mean to place that one last, but when I did, the room changed. Even Linda's expression softened. Andrew stared at the faded paper. For Maggie's ring, he read quietly, paid in full, worth every hour. His voice broke on the last word. Brooke looked away. That was the first time I saw her avoid the ring, not me. I said, your father worked extra hours for that ring. I wore it for 47 years. I sold it because you told me you needed help. And 1 week later, your wife called me a burden while sitting across from me at dinner. Andrew covered his mouth with his hand. Brooke's voice came sharp. I already said that came out wrong. No, I said. It came out clearly. Her eyes narrowed. I reached into the folder again and removed Walter Hayes' statement. Walter Hayes provided a written statement. Someone called his store before I sold the ring, asking about resale value, quick payment, identification, and whether family members needed to be present. Andrew turned his head slowly toward Brooke. She gave an irritated sigh. Oh, for heaven's sake! I made one phone call because you were stressed and I wanted to know what options existed. Andrew's face went pale. You called before Mom sold it? Brooke hesitated. Just long enough. Andrew saw it. I saw it. Linda saw it. Then Brooke said, I was trying to help. The room went quiet. Trying to help. There it was again. The phrase that had carried every violation into my life, wearing clean shoes. Andrew stared at her. You knew she might sell Dad's ring? Your mother is an adult, Brooke snapped. She made her own choice. Yes, I said. I did. But you studied the value of that choice before I even knew I was making it. Brooke turned on me. You act like you're the only one who has sacrificed. Do you know what it's like being married to a man who still runs to his mother every time things get hard? Andrew said, Brooke, stop. But she did not. No, I'm tired of being painted as the villain because I'm the only one willing to say the truth. You hover. You interfere. You make Andrew feel guilty. And then you use money to keep him tied to you. I looked at her for a long moment. My hands were folded over the red folder. My bare finger rested against the cover. Brooke, I said, if I wanted to keep Andrew tied to me, I would have kept giving him money. That stopped her. Only briefly. But enough. I continued. I am not asking him to choose between us. I am asking him to tell the truth about what he took from me. Andrew's eyes filled, but he blinked the tears back. I didn't think of it like that, he whispered. I know, I said. And I did know. That was part of the pain. Andrew had not thought. He had let Brooke think for him. He had let stress think for him. He had let shame think for him. But he had not stopped to think about me standing in a jewelry store, handing over the last thing Henry placed on my finger. Linda cleared her throat gently. There is also the issue of the senior living materials. Andrew looked confused. What senior living materials? I reached into the folder again and placed the brochure on the desk. Oak Meadow Senior Living. Andrew looked at it, then at Brooke. What is this? Brooke stiffened. We talked about it. No, Andrew said slowly. You talked about Mom maybe needing help someday. You didn't say you were bringing her brochures. She changed the locks. Andrew. She's acting paranoid. I placed the locksmith receipt beside the brochure. I changed the locks after you suggested I was confused, told relatives I was unstable, and arrived at my house with materials encouraging me to leave it. Brooke's face reddened. You are twisting everything. Linda spoke then. No, she is documenting everything. Brooke shot her a look. This is none of your business. Linda smiled faintly. When money becomes a question, it becomes exactly my business. For the first time, Brooke looked cornered. Not defeated. Cornered. There is a difference. Defeated people stop fighting. Cornered people look for something to bite. She turned to Andrew. Are you going to let them attack me? Andrew looked between us, his wife, his mother, the accountant, the papers, the truth. For once, no one rescued him from the decision. He looked at Brooke and said quietly, Did you tell Aunt Carol my mother was confused? Brooke crossed her arms. I said I was concerned. Did you post about her online? I didn't name her. Did you know about the ring before she sold it? Brooke's lips pressed together. Andrew's voice changed. Did you? She looked away. That was enough. Andrew leaned back in his chair as if something inside him had finally given way. I watched my son see his wife clearly. It did not feel like victory. It felt like watching a house collapse when you had once hoped to live in it for holidays. Brooke stood. This is disgusting, she said. All of you sitting here judging me because I tried to keep this family afloat. No, I said. You tried to keep control. She looked at me then with pure dislike. No sweetness, no polish, no concern, just the truth of her face. You'll regret this, she said. Maybe she expected me to flinch. I did not. I already regret ignoring you for this long. She grabbed her purse and walked out. The office door closed behind her with a hard sound. Andrew remained seated. His shoulders were hunched. His hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. For several minutes, no one spoke. Then he looked at me. Not at the folder. Not at the receipts. At me. Mom, he said, and his voice sounded younger than it had in years. What did I let happen? I could have comforted him. The old Margaret would have. She would have reached across the desk, taken his hand, told him it was all right, told him they would fix it, told him he was still a good son because she needed him to be one. But I was not that woman anymore, so I told him the truth. You let someone make me smaller because it made your life easier. His eyes closed. Linda looked down at her papers. The room was quiet. And for the first time, Andrew did not ask me to make the silence easier for him. Part 11. After Brooke left Linda's office, Andrew did not follow her immediately. That told me something. Not enough to heal the wound, but enough to notice. For years, my son had moved when Brooke moved. If she stood, he stood. If she sighed, he apologized. If she decided a conversation was over, he treated silence as if it were a locked door. But that morning, he stayed seated. His hands were still clasped together, knuckles pale, eyes fixed on the table where Henry's old receipt lay between us. Paid in full. Worth every hour. Andrew stared at those words as if they had been written for him. Maybe, in a way, they had. Henry had paid for that ring with hours of work. I had paid for Andrew's emergency with the ring. And now Andrew was learning that some debts do not disappear because no one sends an invoice. Linda closed the folder in front of her, but she did not rush us. I appreciated that. There are moments when silence needs to do its work. Finally, Andrew looked up. I need to make this right, he said. His voice was low, broken in places. I wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. A mother's heart can reopen at the smallest sign of remorse. One cracked sentence. One lowered head. One memory of a little boy who used to bring you dandelions in a plastic cup. But remorse is not repair. I had learned that much. How? I asked. He blinked, as if he expected comfort first and questions later. I don't know. That is the first honest thing you've said in weeks. His face tightened, but he accepted it. Linda leaned forward slightly. Andrew, the cleanest first step is a full accounting, unredacted. Business and personal transactions related to the $18,000. He nodded. I can do that. You also need to clarify whether you acknowledge the funds were provided under false or incomplete information. He looked at me. Mom, I didn't mean to lie. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Andrew, when you told me your business needed $18,000, was that true? He looked down. No. The word was quiet, but it was there. Did your business need help? Yes. How much? He swallowed. About $6,000. Linda wrote that down. I did not look away from my son. And the rest? The SUV, the Florida deposit. Some credit card payments. Brooke's credit cards? He flinched. Some were joint. That meant yes. I nodded slowly. Not because it was fine. Because the truth had finally arrived wearing its own clothes. Andrew rubbed both hands over his face. She kept saying we were drowning. That if we didn't get ahead, everything would fall apart. I thought if I could just fix the immediate pressure, we'd be okay. And I was the fix. He closed his eyes. Yes. The honesty hurt more than the excuses. But it was cleaner. Linda drafted a repayment agreement before either of us could get lost in emotion. She was good at that. She gave grief a chair in the room, but she did not let it run the meeting. Andrew agreed to repay the full $18,000 in monthly installments. Not because money could replace the ring. It could not. But because repayment was acknowledgement. It said the money had not been his by right. It said I had not imagined the injury. It said my sacrifice would no longer be treated like family heir, something everyone could breathe without noticing. When Linda printed the agreement, Andrew signed first. His hand shook. Then she turned the document toward me. I stared at the signature line. For a moment, the old guilt returned. What kind of mother makes her son sign a repayment agreement? Then I looked at Henry's old receipt. What kind of son lets his mother sell her wedding ring and says nothing when his wife calls her a burden? I signed. Margaret Ellis. My name looked steady. Andrew watched me put the pen down. Does this mean you don't trust me anymore? The question was so sad and so late that for a moment I could not answer. Then I said, No, Andrew. It means trust now needs help standing up. He nodded slowly. His eyes were wet. I did not wipe them. He was a grown man. He could feel the weight of what he had done without me rescuing him from it. Before we left, Linda made copies for everyone. Andrew placed his copy in a folder and held it against his chest like bad news. In the parking lot, he walked beside me to my car. The air was cool. A few yellow leaves skittered across the pavement. Brooke's SUV was gone. Andrew noticed me looking at the empty space where she had parked. She went home, he said. I said nothing. He shifted. She's furious. I imagine so. She says you're trying to destroy our marriage. I unlocked my car but did not open the door. Andrew, I am not inside your marriage. I never was. But your marriage has been inside my bank account, my home, and my grief. That ends now. He looked down. I know. Does it? He swallowed. I think I'm starting to. Starting. It was not enough, but it was something. I opened the car door. He placed a hand on the top of it, not stopping me, just delaying the goodbye. Mom, he said, I'm sorry I didn't defend you at dinner. That sentence touched the deepest place. Not the money, not the SUV, not even the ring, the dinner. The moment when his wife called me a burden and my son chose the safety of silence over the cost of love. I looked at him. Why didn't you? His mouth trembled. Because I was afraid if I challenged her, everything at home would explode. And you decided it was better if I exploded quietly. He closed his eyes. I regretted the pain on his face. But not the sentence. Some truths are not cruel simply because they hurt. I don't know how to fix that, he whispered. You start by never asking me to absorb your fear again. He nodded. I got into the car. Before closing the door, I said, all communication about the money goes through Linda. All legal matters go through Martin. If you want to see me, you come alone until I decide otherwise. And Brooke is not to contact my relatives about my health, memory, finances, or home again. Andrew nodded again. This time, it looked less like obedience and more like understanding. I'll tell her. No, I said. You'll decide whether you can enforce it. He looked at me sharply. That was another truth he had not wanted. Then I closed the door. At home, there were 7 missed calls from Brooke. I deleted none of them. I wrote them down. There were also texts. You have poisoned him against me. You are manipulating him with guilt. No wonder you're alone. Henry would be ashamed of what you're doing. I read the last one twice. Henry's name in her mouth felt like dirt on clean linen. For a moment, anger rose so fast I had to put the phone down. Then I went to the bedroom and opened Henry's nightstand drawer. His glasses were still there. His old receipt was now in the red folder, but the wooden dish still held his loose change and the little key I had never identified. I sat on the bed and breathed until the anger became something I could hold without spilling. Brooke wanted me to answer. She wanted the old pattern back. She would wound me, then wait for my reaction, then point to my reaction as proof. So I did not give her one. I printed every text and placed them in the folder. Then I called Martin Keller and told him Brooke had invoked Henry's name and continued contacting me after being told to stop. He listened quietly. "We can send a cease and desist letter if this continues," he said. The phrase sounded severe, legal, unmotherly. Then again, so did repayment agreement, so did revocation, so did boundary. I was beginning to understand that unmotherly was sometimes just a word people used when mothers stopped sacrificing themselves on command. "Not yet," I said. "But document it. I will." After that call, I made a cup of tea and sat in the living room as the evening settled. The house felt different. Not empty. Not exactly peaceful. But mine in a way it had not felt for years. The locks were changed. The documents were updated. Andrew was no longer my power of attorney. Linda had the repayment agreement. Martin had the legal file. Walter still had the ring. That last thought hurt. Walter still had the ring. The 30 days were nearly half gone, and I had no way to buy it back. I opened my bank app and looked at the numbers, though I already knew them. I could not do it. Not without putting myself in danger. Not without undoing the very lesson I had just learned. Henry would not want me to risk my security for a symbol, even one he had given me. Still, when Walter called that evening, my heart jumped. "Mrs. Ellis," he said gently, "I just wanted to remind you that I can hold the ring until next Friday. I know. I wish I could extend it. You've been more than kind." He was quiet for a moment. "It's a beautiful piece. It's a beautiful memory," I said. After we hung up, I cried for the first time that week. Not because I was weak. Because I was finally letting myself understand that some things do not come back just because we deserve them. I had done the right thing. I had protected myself. I had made Andrew face the truth, and still, my finger was bare. That was the part no agreement could fix. Later that night, I took Henry's photo from the mantel and sat with it in my lap. "I'm trying," I whispered. The house was quiet. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Andrew. For a moment, I was afraid to open it. But I did. I called Walter Hayes. "Please don't be angry. I need to make one thing right before I can even start on the rest." I stared at the message. My breath caught. Another text came through. He said he'll hold the ring until Friday. "I'm going to find a way. Not with your money. Mine." I pressed the phone against my chest. I did not smile. Not yet. But for the first time since Sunday dinner, the empty place on my finger did not feel quite as final. Tart 12. Andrew did not call me the next morning, or the morning after that. For 3 days, there was nothing from him except one short message. "I'm working on it. Please don't call Walter." I respected that. Not because I trusted everything yet. Because trust, when it has been damaged, does not return as a feeling. It returns as a series of choices. Small ones, quiet ones, choices that can be kept or broken. So I waited. I did not call Walter. I did not call Andrew. I did not ask Carol what she had heard. I did not check Brooke's social media, though part of me expected another polished little post about betrayal, boundaries, and difficult older relatives. Instead, I lived my life. I went to the grocery store. I paid the electric bill. I watered Henry's maple tree in the front yard because the weather had been dry. I cleaned the guest room, then stopped halfway through and stood in the doorway, wondering whether Grace would ever sleep there again with her crayons in the nightstand. Some losses are loud. Others sit quietly in rooms you have already dusted. On Friday morning, I woke before 6. The deadline day. The ring would have to leave Walter's shop if it was not purchased. I had told myself I could accept that. I had told myself a symbol was not the same as a marriage. I had told myself Henry's love did not live in gold. All of that was true. And still, my left hand ached. At 9:17, my phone rang. Walter Hayes. I sat down before answering. "Mrs. Ellis," he said gently. I closed my eyes. "Yes, your ring has been purchased." For a second, I could not speak. Walter continued. "Andrew came in this morning." I pressed my fingers against the edge of the table. "He did?" "Yes. He asked me not to call you until the transaction was complete." "How did he pay for it?" Walter was quiet for a moment. "I can tell you what he told me. He canceled the Florida trip. He sold some equipment he said he didn't need immediately, and he used his personal savings. He was very clear that none of the money came from you." I looked toward Henry's photograph on the wall. The room blurred. "Did he take it with him?" "No," Walter said. "He asked me to clean it again and place it in a proper box. He said he wanted to give it back to you himself, if you would allow it." I closed my eyes. There it was. A door. Not wide open. Not repaired. But unlocked. "Thank you, Walter." He looked ashamed, Walter said softly. "That's not nothing." No. It was not nothing. But it was not everything either. That evening, Andrew came to my house alone. No Brooke. No SUV in the driveway. He arrived in his old work truck, the one with the dent near the back bumper and a toolbox in the bed. When he stepped onto the porch, he did not knock immediately. Through the curtain, I saw him standing there, holding a small navy blue jewelry box in both hands. For a moment, I saw him at 8 years old again, standing at the front door with a broken birdhouse, asking if I could help him fix it before Henry got home. Then I saw the grown man who had hurt me. Both were my son. I opened the door. The chain was not on. That was not forgiveness. It was a test of the space between us. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Hello, Andrew." His eyes moved to my face, then to my left hand, then back again. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into the living room slowly, as if entering a house he no longer had the right to rush through. That, too, mattered. I did not offer coffee. Not because I wanted to be cruel, because I needed the conversation to remain honest, not softened by habit. We sat across from each other in the living room. Henry's photograph was on the mantel between us, watching in that silent way photographs do. Andrew held out the box. I bought it back. I did not take it right away. His hands trembled. "I canceled the trip," he said. "Brooke is furious." I stayed quiet. I sold the table Saw Dad gave me. That hurt. I knew that Saw. Henry had given it to Andrew when he opened his business. But I also knew something else. Sacrifice only becomes meaningful when the person making it feels the cost. Andrew looked down. "I should have sold something of mine before letting you sell something of yours." The sentence landed softly. Not perfect, but true. I took the box. Inside was my ring, cleaned, polished, resting against dark velvet. For a moment, I could not touch it. The diamond caught the lamplight, one small point of brightness in the quiet room. Henry's promise, my grief, my mistake, my proof, my return, all in one circle of gold. Andrew whispered, "I'm sorry. I kept my eyes on the ring. I know you are," he swallowed. "But that doesn't fix it." "No," I said. "It doesn't." His eyes filled. This time, I let him feel it. There are tears mothers should not wipe away. Some tears are the beginning of accountability. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Brooke and I are not in a good place." I looked at him. "I won't pretend to be sorry about that." A small, pained laugh escaped him. "I don't expect you to. What happens in your marriage is yours to handle. Not mine. But I will tell you this once. Do not use me as the reason you finally face what you have been avoiding." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. Fair." Another word that had returned to my life after a long absence. Andrew reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "The first repayment check is in there," he said. "And the signed agreement Linda gave me. I set up automatic payments for the rest." I took the paper and set it on the side table without opening it. The money mattered. The agreement mattered. But not as much as the fact that he had not asked me to make him feel better. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked toward the mantel. Dad would be ashamed of me. I followed his gaze to Henry's photograph. Yes, I said. Andrew flinched. Then I added, but he would also expect you to become better after knowing it. His face twisted, and for the first time, he cried without hiding it. Not loudly. Just a grown man sitting in his mother's living room, finally understanding that silence can wound as deeply as words. I let him cry. When he left an hour later, I did not hug him at the door. He did not ask for one. That was progress. Before stepping onto the porch, he turned back. Can I see you next week? Alone? Yes. Then yes. He nodded. Can I bring the kids sometime? My throat tightened. Eventually. He accepted that too. After he left, I returned to the living room and sat with the ring box in my lap. For a long time, I only looked at it. Then I took the ring out and slid it onto my finger. It was looser than I remembered. My hands had changed. So had I. The ring settled at the base of my finger, familiar and foreign at the same time. I expected to feel only relief. Instead, I felt something deeper. The ring had once meant I belonged to Henry. Then it meant I had lost him. Then it became proof of what I was willing to sacrifice for my son. Now, it meant something else. It meant I could love deeply and still protect myself. It meant I could forgive slowly. It meant I could be a mother without being a wallet, a widow without being weak, and an old woman without being anyone's burden. 3 months later, Andrew brought Mason and Grace over for lunch. Brooke did not come. I did not ask why. Grace ran into my kitchen first, then stopped when she saw my hand. You got Grandpa's ring back, she said. I did. She smiled, the kind of smile children give when something in their world has been put back where it belongs. Mason hugged me harder than usual. Andrew stood in the doorway, holding a bag of groceries, looking uncertain but present. That was enough for the day. We made grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. Grace set the table. Mason told me about school. Andrew washed the dishes afterward without being asked. No one mentioned Brooke. No one mentioned Florida. No one mentioned the money. But the silence was different from before. It was not hiding something. It was making room for repair. After they left, I opened the red folder one last time. Henry's ring. Inside were the receipts, screenshots, notes, statements, agreements, and copies of every truth I had once been afraid to name. I did not throw it away. I placed it in the locked box with my important papers. Not because I planned to use it, because I had learned that peace does not require forgetting what it cost. That evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and watched the light fade behind Henry's maple tree. I turned the ring slowly around my finger. Once. Twice. The way I had for 47 years. But this time, I was not reaching for Henry because I felt alone. I was thanking him for teaching me what love was before others tried to sell me a cheaper version. I sold that ring to save my son. In the end, the ring came back. But that was not the real miracle. The real miracle was that I came back too.